If you're like most riders, sooner or later you will start changing things on your motorcycle, be that to improve the comfort of your riding. For instance, it could be as simple as installing some foam grips to reduce the vibration that goes to your hands, or it could be the handlebar to adapt to your specific height, or even could be something aesthetic to make the motorcycle unique to you. But the more you start changing, more likely you are that something is just not going to fit properly, especially when you're mixing different products. One thing is to change only the handlebar, but the other thing is to change the handlebar, handguards, mirrors, grips, and all of this has to come together in a way that makes sense. I've been riding motorcycles for over 15 years, starting with a 125 in the countryside of Brazil, all the way to some powerful naked bikes, and now I have a Honda CRF300L, and during this time I have done my fair share of mistakes. In this video, I'd like to focus especially on any modification that you do to the handlebar of your motorcycle. Now, the handlebar is quite a crowded location of your motorcycle. You have your controls, you have electrical cables, brake line, you might be attaching handguards, you have your mirror, throttle tube, the clutch cable. So you can quickly realize that any change you make in here, all of these items still need to come together in a good way. If you have a Honda CRF300L, I'd say this video is a no-brainer because pretty much you can take what I'm telling you here and apply one-to-one to your motorcycle. But even if you have a different motorcycle, the concept of what you're going to see in here might still be useful to you. As we go along in this video, I'm going to share the model and name of the parts that I have. And if you decide to get the same one for your motorcycle, I pretty much have installation videos for everything that I'm sharing in here on the channel. Let's start with a change that's going to impact everything in here, and that is the handlebar. I have decided to go for the Pro Taper CR Height 7/8. 7/8 meaning that the mounting point in here, where you have the clamping section, has been maintained original. So I'm using the original clamping with the original bolts. Personally, this is what I like, and I'm 1.75 m. But if you're a taller rider, you might benefit by installing some handlebar risers. In this case, you might look into modifying, instead of the 7/8, you might have the tapered version, which is thicker here at the central part of the handlebar. Now, there are a lot of changes that will come together by modifying this handlebar. This video would be too extensive if I would mention all of the changes, but I have a dedicated video here on the channel where I talk about every dimension and how this impacts your riding. Overall, I can tell you this made my riding more comfortable because it brings the handlebar a little bit forward, a little bit taller, and it also changed the angle to which I grab the handlebar. So I really like this change. But if you look at the remaining of the dimensions, this will impact pretty much everything in here. Let me show to you why. When you go from the original handlebar of the Honda CRF300L to the Pro Taper CR High, this center section, okay, this mid portion here, which is straight, where you clamp your handlebar, it is much longer compared to the original handlebar. Now, there isn't a huge difference in the total length of the handlebar. There's a small difference, I don't remember here in millimeters, but there's a small difference. But the way it is distributed, this mid portion is much longer on the Pro Taper CR High, and by consequence, well, something needs to give. That means that the part where you mount your controls also becomes much shorter. So take a look at this section here, okay, where I have my grip, my controls, and now the attachment point for my clutch lever, and also where the mirror is connected. If you compare this on your Honda CRF300L, you will notice that you have a lot more space in here on this section, which continues straight. I have also added some foam grips, and these foam grips, they drastically reduce vibration. I would say it's close to zero right now, so that makes my riding much more comfortable. But these foam grips, they're also longer. So look what has happened in here. Not only I have shortened the area where I can mount things to my handlebar, so I have shortened this, but I have also used more space in here to have these foam grips. So I drastically reduced the space which is left for me to install the controls and the mounting point for the mirror and for my clutch lever. In fact, I have to tell you that this part in here should be probably 2 to 3 meters more towards this direction, closer to the controls, but I'm unable to do it. That's as far as it's going to go, and by consequence, I have mounted this a little bit on a curve in here. So where the curve of the handlebar starts, that's where I have mounted this part. Now, luckily, it still works, and I cannot see any problems, but it's just about on the edge. But if you have any plans on installing additional accessories to this section of the handlebar, keep in mind that there's no space left. I have also changed my mirrors and they do vibrate more, so the visibility has been reduced, but I do get the advantage that I can just flip them whenever I want, and they are much cheaper. So in case of a fall, I would hope in here that they get just knocked out of their place instead of breaking, and since they are much cheaper, it's also easier on the pocket in case I need to replace them. Now, of course, it is better to do this type of maintenance when you're at home, and especially before you start a motorcycle trip. But not only this, it gives you the chance to get acquainted with your motorcycle. So if you need to do any repairs while you're out traveling, you already have the experience on how to do it. That's why it is very important that you take the time to build a good toolkit for your motorcycle. And at the heart of every good toolkit is going to be a good way for you to carry your tools. So let me show to you the Royamoto 2-roll. The Royamoto 2-roll is a lightweight, compact, but big enough to carry all of the tools that you need while you're out riding. It comes with several pockets, including very small ones to securely store very small spanners, but also if you want, you can store quite wide items inside these pockets. And it also has 4 elastic loops for you to store long items. So here I have my trail jack, a hand pump, an extension, and another smaller extension. In addition, you have these large pockets. On this one, I like to keep the sockets that I use most often. And on these 2 smaller pockets, I also have tools that I'm not going to use all the time. Here on the flap, you have a place for you to write your details in case you lose it. And you also have this mesh pocket, which is ideal for storing flat and smaller items. I've been working on my motorcycles for over 8 years, and I find super important to carry magnets with you. That's why we included 2 pockets, so you can have 2 magnets, and of course you can also remove them like this. And in case you remove the magnet and you, for whatever reason, drop a screw of your motorcycle in a place where you cannot reach, you can just attach the magnet to fish the screw. And that also gives you a place to position screws and nuts that you remove from your motorcycle so they don't get lost. If you want more details about the Royamoto 2-roll, just check here in the description or go to royamoto.com/2roll. And now back to the video. Handguards are very important, especially if you're likely to drop your motorcycle like I am. And so far I have always opted for the Barkbuster handguards. Couple of comments in here. If you have the original handlebar on your Honda CRF300L, Barkbusters offers a model-specific version. Critical for you to know is that the model-specific version will not work with this handlebar, the Pro Taper CR High. So if you go for the modification of your handlebar, then do not buy, and I know that by experience, do not buy the model-specific version. I'm going to leave the correct model if you have the Pro Taper CR High here on the screen, because then they will fit, but still not perfect, and that's the next topic we need to cover. Personally, handguards for me are a must, okay? And here I'm talking about adventure trips, when you're going to put yourself in situations where you might not have easy access to help, or you might have to pay for help, or you might just get stuck. So handguards for me are a must. What you could make a counter argument is that when you look at enduro riders that are racing, I mean, these guys are much tougher than what I can be with the motorcycle, and they do not have this type of wraparound handguards. So what's going on in there? Now, 1, they're much better riders. 2, you can minimize the chance of your levers breaking by just not tightening too much the screws of your controls in there where the levers are connected. So in case of a fall of the motorcycle, you would expect the levers to then just flip up. Now, this can all happen. The thing is, I'm not willing to pay to see if that's going to be the case with me. I'm not a professional rider, and I don't have the structure of a competition, of a race, in case something happens with the motorcycle. So you need to be self-sufficient when you're out riding, especially in the backcountry, and that's why I always use handguards. But while handguards are important, I have made another mistake, and that's how you install them. So you need to be very careful with the position of installation of this wraparound bar. Let me show to you on the motorcycle what I strongly advise you to avoid doing, because I have learned the hard way and I don't want this to happen to you. When you drop the motorcycle, this section here of the handguard is most likely the one that's going to hit first. So the impact is going to come from below. And there is a chance, and this has happened to me and it put me in troubles, that when this happens, this impact comes, it flips, okay? It flips the handguard up. And by consequence, that's all one part that is connected here to the midpoint of the handlebar. When this happens, if you have anything on the way, it's going to get pulled. This could be your clutch cable, your throttle cable, it could be your brake line, cables of your controls. So you need to be super careful. That's the way I do it. I don't want to have anything which could get caught on the way. Look at the modification I have done in here. What you see in here is the handguard coming along this bar and connecting to my handguard. Now let's take a look of what's on the way. If you see here my throttle cables, I can live with that because there's a lot of slack. So in case this would flip up like this, you would not snap them. So I can live with that. Next point is going to be the brake line. And this you really need to watch out because that could be a huge problem if you lose your front brake. If you compare on your Honda CRF300L, you'll notice that this metal bend in here on mine is flipped upwards. Okay, I have modified this. Originally, it would be flipped downwards like this. And it would be pretty much touching with the handguard. That means that in case there was any upwards movement of the handguard, it would immediately go against my brake line. And since that's made of metal, it would either break or I would lose brake fluid or simply snap it. So for me, it's a no-go. Check on yours and flip it up. I recommend it to do if you have the same. The best solution would be actually to route the brake line underneath, okay, passing in here, underneath, because then in case of a fall, if this would flip up, it cannot catch on the brake line. In fact, anything that you could route underneath, it would be better, but I just couldn't do it on mine. Talking about grips, I see two routes for you to modify in here to increase your comfort during riding. If you have a buzzy motorcycle with a lot of vibrations, that's usually going to be with single-cylinder motorcycles or older motorcycles. When you're maintaining a higher RPM, it can make your hands numb. And that's, for me, it's impossible. If you're going to be riding over 5 hours in a day, it's just not possible to have numb hands during all of this time. One, you take a foam that goes over the original grip. Now, they do work, and I have already tested them, but there is a problem. For some people could be a problem, but it was a problem for me. Since you're adding a foam on top of the original grip, this is going to increase the diameter. So if you're used to holding your handlebar like this, okay, your grip like this, when you add this foam, it increased the diameter. I'm exaggerating a little bit here because of the video, but I couldn't get used to this. I like the feeling of really having my fingers pretty much touching when I wrap them around the grip. These grips, they will substitute the original grips. So that means that you maintain the original diameter, and actually they are even shaped on they have a nicer shape for you to hold. I like that. But the thing with these grips is that they are a little bit longer than the original grips. And why are they longer? Because they have these lips here on the extremities, one on each side, and they are quite comfortable. Maintaining this lip here, it is quite nice, but makes them longer. And then you could say, well, just cut it off. But then if you do that, now they are too short for the palm of your hand. At least I have quite wide, the palm of my hand is quite wide. So if I cut them, now my hand would stick out on a portion that there is no grip. So I also don't like that. So when I installed these grips, I needed to bring everything, okay, a little bit the controls here, the throttle tube, and also on this part, I need to bring everything a little bit more towards the center of the handlebar, so I create more space. I have more length of the handlebar available for the grips to sit correctly. So there you see, you have this change. And the other thing you could do is to install some heated grips. But generally speaking, if you go for heated grips, then you cannot have the foam. The foam would act as an insulating material. So either you go and you take care of vibrations with foams, or you take care of the cold with the heated grips. Watch out for any increase to the handlebar height and weight, and make sure that the brake line, throttle cable, clutch cable, and any electrical cables still have sufficient length to be attached to the handlebar. Sometimes after a change, there isn't enough length on them to be connected with adequate slack to your handlebar. The same goes for the clearance between your handlebar and your fuel tank, dashboard, and windshield. Turn your handlebar full lock to the right and left, and make sure it's not touching any component of your motorcycle. That is especially relevant when you install handguards. These are all of the variables that I have found to be important when you're changing anything here connected to your handlebar. Now, if you have also learned something that I did not mention here in this video, I would love to hear from you here in the comments so we can share this experience with other riders. I know this video is a little bit long, but my goal in here was just to share some of the mistakes I have done and hopefully help you to save time and money. That's it. I see you on the next video. Bye-bye.